Hi, this is Anna Crowe with the Get Real podcast, where CEOs, CMOs, and communications experts and leaders share their real advice. It's 5 questions under 9 minutes because we get to it real fast. So let's get to it. I am so thrilled to have today's guest on. And if you sense this, could you please tell us who you are and what you do, Matt?
Sure. My name's Matt Eurey, and Anna, I appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you. But I lead our large market business for Accolade. And Accolade is a personalized healthcare company that specializes in working with employers and health plans on helping employees and their family members navigate what is a very difficult healthcare landscape. And so we essentially stand beside members on a day in, day out basis. We surround them with what we call a health assistant and a registered nurse and great technology, and we help them to optimize their healthcare outcomes.
Wow, that's fantastic. And as an employer and former employee, I can tell that is a very complex market and area of expertise, and the fact that you're able to do it, especially with technology, is so incredible. So kudos to you and the team for serving such an important role in the industry and across different industries, really, in this.
Yeah, absolutely. I was a former customer of Accolades. I had the opportunity to run benefits and rewards at both Lowe's and Time Warner Cable and implemented the Accolade solution and had just wonderful success with the outcomes that we realized with our employees and family members.
That's awesome to hear. Well, very cool. This podcast is around getting real and creating genuine and authentic connections. And the first question is really about that. So I hear from other executives and CEOs and CMOs that creating authentic connections with customers or employees or other partners can be challenging when there's a lot of noise out there. I'd love to hear your take on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great place to start. For us, and I would say especially with our customer base, you can imagine what the pandemic has done. It's only exacerbated the issues that their employees and family members are working through from a health benefits consumption and getting to optimize outcomes. The way in which we ensure that we engage with our customers in a real way is to be relevant, Anna. And let me kind of unpack that to a degree. When the pandemic came on, how an employer was going to navigate COVID response, they needed answers. And so Accolade could have stayed in their lane and continued down our path, but we unveiled a COVID response care product that was relevant to that buyer that would help them with their immediate need. Same thing, there's been mental health issues that have exploded as a result of a pandemic. And so instead of saying that our traditional model or what we've always done was the answer, we went and looked for partnerships and opportunities to help that acute need. And it developed into a partnership with Ginger that allows us to serve in a much more broader scale those mental health needs that were happening within the ranks of our employees and family members. I'd say today we've made 2 key acquisitions on the backs of virtual care is actually one of the good things that came out of the pandemic. There's more receptivity for utilization of a virtual primary care physician. And so for us, it's always ensuring that we're grounded in what our customers are dealing with. And then by what they're dealing with, hearing, assessing, becoming relevant for them, and then leading them through an alternative that would make sense for them from a business standpoint has made us sticky and I would say viable as they're navigating great change organizationally.
That's great. And to your point, reading the statistics on mental health, I mean, those numbers are staggering, and not to mention preventative health and what's happened over the pandemic with people seeing their primary doctor. So having that accessibility and that visibility that you're able to provide and connect the dots is so critical. So I love that. Do you have any other real advice for other leaders? Is there anything else that you think is really important?
Yeah, authenticity. So I'll tell you, I've benefited by sitting in the chair of the customers and the buyers of our services. And you're not always going to be in a situation where you may have been in that role for the customers that you're working with or that are buying from you. But you need to do a lot of homework and you need to be relatable. And one of the greatest things that I often am able to do with our robust customer base is I know what they're dealing with. It's bigger than just the accolade service. They may have been asked to take on COVID response for their entire organization, and they may not have had any pandemic related experience. And so being able to hear all of the things that are on their plate, being a thought partner, being empathetic, spending time and being very personable in how you may or may not be able to help, but as importantly, being a listening ear. I would say in the era that we're living in right now, it's a super important component of ensuring that you're providing great care to your customers and the members that you get an opportunity to serve.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. Actively listening and having a genuine conversation and connection is so important, probably more important today than ever before, at least in my lifetime. So that's great advice. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Well, before we get to our final question, are there any other successful executives such as yourself that you'd care to acknowledge while we have you on this podcast?
Yeah, maybe a couple of quick points. I mean, obviously, I'm fortunate to have some of the greatest customers, I think, across the market, and I get to work with Comcast and State Farm and a lot of really high-profile organizations that are doing innovative things in market. And so their VP of rewards and those in benefits and the interactions that I get to have with them really help for me to be at the top of my game and making sure that I'm relevant and staying attuned to my space. I would say outside of my network, I don't know that if you've seen this, Anna, but Bobby Bowden passed away, a great football coach from Florida State University. And what I saw as a result of the funeral and things that came as a result of his passing was former players and coaches that flooded that Florida State campus and wanted to talk about not the necessarily the impact that they had on their football career, but the impact that he had on their life. And so an overarching and guiding principle for me is absolutely I want Accolade to be successful. Absolutely I want to impact our customers and ensure that our product's relevant. But I also want to make sure that I'm impacting them in the way in which is so much bigger than business. I want them to know that I'm a friend, I'm a confidant, I'm a listening ear. And so what Bobby Bowden carved out is one of my goals, which is be second and be super relevant to the customers in a much bigger way than just business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's great. And I love that. You're right. And it also goes back to that vulnerability piece you mentioned earlier, just connecting with someone on a human level, understanding them and showing that relevance. Like we have that connection and I hear you, here's what I'm going to do for you. And connecting with people and touching people on a personal level is such a gift, right? There's, and you can do that in a very short time or it could take years, but either way, it's a really beautiful thing. Well, our last question is more of a fun one. You've had this incredible career and an amazing role currently, but can you tell us how you got started? What was your first job?
So I'll give you the pre-college and then post-college.
Great.
So pre-college, I was a bagger at a local grocery store here in the Charlotte, North Carolina area called Harris Teeter. And I'll tell you that I still think about that job all the time. It instilled in me a work ethic. There was a set of duties that I was asked to accomplish, and I'll never forget my first review, even being a 16-year-old kid and getting that first raise and how that was meaningful to me. I graduated from the Citadel. My first job out of the Citadel actually was a production manager for a manufacturing facility in Georgia. And I'll tell you, that was not the right job for me, Anna, but it taught me something, that I needed to go and find something that I was passionate about and that I wanted to wake up and do every day. And that first experience, while it wasn't the right first job, it taught me that I needed to go find that passion.
That's great. Yeah, it served its purpose, right? And you were able to check it off the list, like, that's not for me.
Absolutely.
A lot of times young people don't realize the beauty of that and get really nervous about their first job. What if it's not something I want to do for the rest of my life? That's okay. It probably won't be. So
that's exactly right.
That makes sense. Very cool. Well, I so appreciate you joining us today. And how can people learn about the company? How can they connect with you? Is there any info you care to share?
Absolutely. Obviously, accolade.com is the easiest way in order to get an opportunity to learn more about us. Obviously, I'm on LinkedIn and some other social media networks. And so if there's a personal connection, would welcome that opportunity as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again for joining, Matt, and everyone out there. Have a beautiful day. Talk soon.
Thank you, Anna.
Bye.
Bye.